Hello, my name is Maddie Boardman and I'm a solution-focused hypnotherapist at Old Town Hypnotherapy in Swindon and online. And today I'm going to be talking about perfectionists. We all are probably familiar with the term, but I'm going to look into the pitfalls of being a perfectionist and the different types of perfectionists that are out there, what we can do about it. Perfectionism is a personality trait that describes an individual who has excessively flawless performance goals for themselves or for other people. It isn't a mental illness on its own, but it is a common factor in quite a few mental illnesses. And at a mild level, it can even be advantageous, especially in a workplace environment where if you're somebody who has very high goals and works incredibly hard, you're going to do pretty well. But by their nature, perfectionists often fall short of their unrealistic expectations. And when they fall short, they can often experience very high levels of anxiety and negative stress. And it's this anxiety and negative stress that puts them at risk of developing further mental health problems such as obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, depression, anxiety issues, and even down the far end, suicide. So there are three types of perfectionists. The first one, bit of a tongue twister, socially prescribed perfectionists. The second type is other-orientated perfectionists. And the third is self-orientated perfectionists. So what are the difference? How do we know if we fall into any of those groups, or how do we know if someone we care for or know fall into one of these groups? And is there anything we can do about it? So the first group I'm going to have a look at is the socially prescribed perfectionists. Now, socially prescribed perfectionists are different from the other types of perfectionists in that they feel their pressure externally. They're highly self-critical individuals, but they feel an external pressure to be the very best, and they anticipate rejection from other people if they fail to achieve the best. They have a belief that they're going to be rejected in some way, that other people are judging them, and the only way they can get other people's approval is to be perfect and to achieve their very high goals that they set for themselves. They often go through life feeling disliked, rejected, and it can be a result of early childhood experiences of having parents who have unrealistic high expectations that they place on their children. That's a risk factor. That doesn't necessarily correlate to developing this type of perfectionism, or indeed result in this type of perfectionism. An example of someone who is a socially prescribed perfectionist might be an individual who takes hours in the morning choosing their outfit, hours in front of the mirror choosing the right outfit for them to wear, or the right hairdo, or whatever it might be, and spend a long time trying to make it perfect. Or they might be somebody who feels an enormous pressure to keep their home dust-free, utterly spotless, and they spend hours cleaning and tidying to maintain that very high standard they've set themselves. Or maybe somebody who writes social media posts but spends hours just writing a short paragraph trying to get it perfect. These types of people frequently compare themselves unfavourably and unrealistically to other people, while being hypersensitive to the needs of others, other people's preferences, other people's expectations, other people's needs. And this type of perfectionism has strong associations with disorders such as binge eating and different types of depression, which again we won't go into today, but certainly depression is a risk factor. Socially prescribed perfectionists often have quite a self-depreciating kind of humour. They often have quite a low self-esteem. They have a low self-regard. They feel inferior. And they can be quite antisocial people. and quite unemotional people. They don't respond well to any kind of positive feedback, and they often develop quite unhealthy, codependent relationships with people, where they neglect their needs to cater for the needs of other people. The second group of perfectionists we're going to look at today is the self-orientated perfectionists. And out of the three types of perfectionists, this group is deemed the kind of healthiest type of perfectionist. They often display positive characteristics such as conscientiousness, high motivation, high productivity, emotional intelligence, and they often do incredibly well in a kind of workplace arena. They excel. However, self-orientated perfectionists often feel dissatisfied with their own success. So, whereas the socially prescribed ones feel that other people are judging them, the self-orientated perfectionists are very much, it's all internal. They set the bar very high for themselves, believing their achievements are never enough. It can be a case of doing brilliantly, but if it isn't perfect, then they failed. They can be identified as quite competitive people, and quite aggressive in their sense of humour. They tend to have very high goals, and they work incredibly hard to achieve them. A high achiever, though, is different. You see, somebody who's a high achiever would be satisfied with doing a pretty great job. That's okay with them. But a perfectionist will not accept, nothing less than perfect. And a high achiever aims to get the best out of themselves, but it's a desire, it's a hope. While with these kinds of perfectionists, it's more of it's a fear of not achieving. Individuals falling into this category of perfectionism often use avoidance techniques. They often opt out of activities or situations where they might be shown up as being less than perfect. And they're at risk of depression, as with other types of perfectionism. Anorexia is quite a heavy risk in this type of perfectionism, and again a suicide risk. Third type of perfectionist we're going to look at today is the other orientated. Now these again are different. Other orientated perfectionists are it's often described as the dark type of perfectionists. They often hold others to high standards and can be very critical and very judgmental when people don't meet their very high expectations. It can be associated with other negative personality traits such as narcissistic behaviour, antisocial behaviour, uncaring personality characteristics. And this variety of perfectionism makes building and sustaining close relationships emotionally really painful, not only, for both parties involved. They're usually incredibly critical of their partner or of their friends. They tend to suppress their own emotions, and when doing this, they create this distance in their relationships. They don't easily fit into any kind of social norm, and they often display a quite, again, aggressive sense of humour, but at the expense of other people. They like to make fun of others. They can struggle to be happy at other people's expense, and at other people's success. They struggle to be pleased for their friends who do well. Now, perhaps you identify with one of these descriptions, or perhaps you see someone you know in one of them. Many people have elements of perfectionism in their personality, and it can enable them to do well in their lives. They can be real pros to having elements, but when the desire to excel becomes a fear to fail, we know that there is a change in that motivation. It can really affect somebody's stress levels, somebody's anxiety levels, and can have a really negative effect. If an individual's personality traits are expressed in a way that is detrimental, so if their perfectionist traits come out in a way that is detrimental, causing negative consequences to themselves, to others, to their happiness, to their health, it probably is time to address the issue and to work towards healthier thought processes. Perfectionists have primitive minds. I often do this talking about the limbic system, the amygdala, which is often, well, it's located further back in the brain, so I often do this. But their primitive minds are hypervigilant about any kind of mistake, so that they notice every little correction that's needed. So a perfectionist, as an example, could start proactively noting down the things that they are doing well in their day, or the positive in their day. It's likely that a perfectionist will have a very negative internal narrative, very critical. So they could consider starting to challenge their thought patterns and using affirmations to remind them of their strength. They could adopt new strategies to help reduce their stress levels. We know regular exercise is so vital to our mental health. We know meditation can be helpful to balance us out. But ultimately, if you identify as a perfectionist and you want to change, you need to find the right way for you. For you are the expert in you, rather than have somebody else tell you the things you should do. It's best that you find your own way. And that's kind of what we do in clinic with our clients. We very much help them to find their own solutions to leading a calmer, healthier, happier life. At Old Town Hypnotherapy, perfectionists often arrive because they've identified that they've got the very high stress levels, rather than they come in as self-proclaimed perfectionists. And during the therapy part of their sessions, they start to identify small steps that they can make in their lives to help them to live a more relaxed, a more positive version of their lives. During their hypnosis part of the session, they start to embed these small steps, these preferred behaviours, into their thought patterns, helping them these changes to manifest in their daily lives. So that's it. That's the 3 types of perfectionists. That's what to look out for. We offer free consultations, an hour-long consultation, either online or in person, available for anyone who's interested in exploring any more of this or any other issue. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.